My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. In 1970, Motown's The Temptations had a #1 hit song entitled Ball of Confusion. The lyrics, written by Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong, included the powerful and challenging refrain, "Ball of Confusion, that's what the world is today." 50 years later, and the song is apropos, and perhaps even more so for 2020. It's obvious that we have deep division, need deep wisdom, and we need more understanding and compassion to navigate all that this unprecedented year has manifested. Is there a source that we may turn to for this guidance, and may it be found within ancient wisdom from more than 3 millennia ago? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, says these answers and much more may be found in ancient Jewish teachings. Rabbi Simon is considered one of the greatest scholars and most sought-after speakers in the Jewish world, yet his message is for all people. He's the author of the best-selling book, Toward a Meaningful Life, a William Morrow publication that has sold more than 400,000 copies and has been translated into 11 languages. He's been interviewed on more than 300 radio and TV shows, including CBS, CNN, PBS, MSNBC, Fox, and NPR. Rabbi Jacobson is founding dean of the Meaningful Life Center. His website is meaningfullife.com, and he joins me this week to share his experience and the wisdom we need to navigate our rapidly changing and often confusing world. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Welcome, Rabbi.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful intro. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom. Rabbi, please start by sharing with our listeners your background and path and how it shaped what you will share with us today.
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, to two parents who immigrated from Russia after World War II. And in a very traditional Jewish home, in the mystical tradition of Chabad Lubavitch that some may be aware of. So on one hand, I grew up with a very strong religious upbringing and conditioning, but I have to say I also grew up in a very non-dogmatic home. My father was a journalist, well-read, and was very open-minded. There was skepticism. There was open discussions. So I had this interesting combination of very strong values and strong traditional roots and in my religion, but at the same time, really being able to explore all kinds of approaches, which really worked for me because I am that type of free spirit, more bohemian-like. I would not really respond well to strong dogma and being dictated, do this and don't do that. So I've developed into an individual that is really, I would say, a spiritual seeker. And being a natural communicator, I discovered my calling in my late teens to use my skills of communication, writing, and relating to people, the human condition, and trying to apply the ancient wisdom of the sages, which is quite universal to contemporary life. And that's what I do till this very day. I actually turned 64 today.
Happy birthday. Wonderful. Mazel tov. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Rabbi, a lot of people are not in the areas like we are here in New York and Los Angeles and major cities where Chabad Lubavitch is well known. Please explain what that means.
Yeah, well, Judaism, as we all know, goes back to biblical times, starting from the stories of Adam and Eve and Abraham and Isaac, the story of the Egyptian exile and Exodus, and the central biblical stories that have become so much part of our culture, including the basis of Christianity and Islam. Within Judaism, obviously, there are different denominations and different schools of thought. So where I grew up was a particular school of thought that is very mystically oriented. In other words, it's not just about ritual and traditions, but also a deep mystical and spiritual connection with the divine, and with a focus of internalizing it and not just following mechanical behaviors, but really turning it into a spiritual journey. That's the best way I can describe. So Chabad Lubavitch literally is a type of mystically driven and a very intellectual spiritual approach to Judaism. So it combines essentially ritual and spiritual in a beautiful fusion, which I think is necessary because I don't think the dogmatic or the mechanical or robotic approach to any religion really will work well for many people because it won't resonate. Not everybody's just a conformist. So it has that type of sense of integrating creativity and exploration and even being artistic somewhat into the whole process, and making it a very, I would say, full-bodied experience rather than a compartmentalized one.
Wonderful. Now, you're the author of the best-selling book, Toward a Meaningful Life, that has sold more than 400,000 copies worldwide, and you're also dean and founder of the Meaningful Life Center. What does it mean to you to have a meaningful life?
I think the best way to describe it is in terms of no business can function without a mission statement. It's the focal point, it's the hub, it's the rubric upon which every detail and every employee and every project is guided by, like a compass. And I think the same thing is with our personal lives. Can we really be focused? Can we really be efficient if we don't have our personal mission? So meaning in life means understanding and embracing in a passionate way your calling, or in some way connecting your unique personality and skills and opportunities with something greater than yourself. And in that sense, you are driven by that. And in many ways it informs and connects all your activities from the most mundane to the most ethereal.
It's interesting. This past March, I basically ended a 42-year career in business. And one of the things that I used to teach young people in business was taking ownership of customer satisfaction. And I said we have to extend that to life, because in life we are actually customers of each other, and we have to take ownership for each other. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Because in a sense, if you look at nature and you look at the very human body, we are a very symbiotic. We have a symbiotic life. We all are. We give and take, and existence cannot exist if we don't all have our unique side and at the same time receive and cross-pollinate from each other. So that type of responsibility is that we cannot be complete if we don't have others with us. I always love the analogy of music, where we're all part of a cosmic symphony, each one playing our song or our songs and music. At the same time, we need the other instruments and the other musicians, all part of this larger orchestra.
Absolutely. You say that fear, anxiety, and depression are underlying factors that drive much of human behavior today. What is the secret to overcoming these forces?
Well, first, let's distinguish between symptoms and causes, symptoms and roots. Most people, when they're dealing with fear or anxiety, usually turn to short-term solutions, either numbing it with a painkiller or with some activity that distracts you in a form of escape from it. When you get to the root of it, interestingly, if a person is anxious, remember, dead people, not to sound morbid, are never anxious. So anxiety is a sign of life. It's a sign that there's something missing. It's like pain, a wake-up call. So the response to anxiety is to try to reconnect a tension that's going on between what I like to call between who you are and what you do. When you have a dissonance in your own inner life, the conflict, whether it's the conflict between survival and more transcendent needs, or the conflict between home and work, or your own internal fears and anxieties that may result from childhood, where you may have been criticized and you don't feel you're living up to other people's expectations, a sense of lack of fulfillment or self-confidence. So these are all voices that are telling you need to do something about it. And the first thing one needs to do is feed and nourish their soul. Feed and nourishing your soul means just as your body needs food and nutrients and vitamins and exercise, so does your soul. For example, love. When you give love, you're not just giving, you're also receiving, because you're exercising, let's call it that muscle called love within your soul. And the same through the whole spectrum of our human experience, that we need to nourish our souls. And when we do so, that helps alleviate some of the dissonance that causes anxiety. Now, of course, I'm not talking about clinical or something that needs medical intervention. I'm discussing more of the psychological side of it.
It's interesting that you had mentioned about the fact that those who have passed on don't feel any of these feelings. I had a wonderful teacher and mentor who used to say that he wakes up in the morning and his legs would be in pain, his arms would be in pain, his back would be in pain, and he praises the divine that he has the pain. And people would say, why do you praise the divine? He says, because if I were dead, I wouldn't be feeling anything. So
exactly.
Totally understood.
It's a double-edged sword. Some of us, there's an expression in the book of Ecclesiastes, he says, more knowledge, the more pain. That's how it is. Yeah. When you're more aware, you're always going to be more in pain.
The nationwide protests over the killing of George Floyd and other unarmed black people have been mostly peaceful, but there has been some development into rioting and looting. How should we address prejudice, discrimination in policing, and the backlash in our society?
You ask me these million-dollar questions. I love it. Okay. What I find quite disturbing is this. I think we all agree, and I definitely will state what I feel. Every human being is created in the divine image. In the words of the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. I probably would amend that to all people are created equal, not to create any confusion. All people are created equal. We all have unalienable rights endowed to us by the Creator, and period. This has nothing to do with color, race, culture, religion. This is equal. 8 billion people on this earth and counting have that divine right to life. No one has a right to infringe upon or in any way compromise another person's life, let alone kill them, whether it's for racial reasons, for any reasons. As a Jew, I can tell you, we've been they talk about systemic racism. We've been at the brunt of a systemic racism going back thousands of years. So now, the question now is, how do you deal with a discrimination and racism that may even turn violent and destructive? Is the way to deal with it like through two wrongs don't make a right, in the sense to go ahead and protest in violence in response to the violence that was perpetrated on you? Again, I say this proudly as a Jewish person. That was never our approach. We did not go ahead and bomb Germany after the World War II or loot their stores, because we felt that the way you express your outrage is by building your life, becoming a greater person, not allowing yourself to be a victim. So while I and any responsible citizen is outraged at George Floyd's murder, and by all means, peaceful protests, try to change legislation, prosecute those that are responsible, by all means, in every possible way. But when I see, in any way, I'm in New York, and I see completely a type of lawlessness, and with the excuse that we've been victimized, I find that to be equally appalling. And I think it's become like politically incorrect to criticize someone looting when they don't even know why they're looting.
How may all of us, of all faiths, address religious hatred and, in particular, anti-Semitism?
And I will say, even as a Jew, I will tell you, anti-Semitism and anti-black, any form of anti-racism, whether it's against Hispanics, Latinos, blacks, or whites for that matter, is all equally unacceptable. I mean, there are short-term solutions and there are long-term ones. On short-term, obviously, we have to do everything possible to make sure that the law and order is in place, that those that do violate other people's civil rights, whether it was the shooting in Pittsburgh last year in the synagogue, or the killing of George Floyd, or any other form of racial crime, should be prosecuted to the fullest extent, create the right deterrents and the right incentives. gains on a short term. On a long term, I think we need an overhaul of our education system. We need to be teaching our children that we are all children of God, and that we all, regardless of whether we have faith or no faith, or regardless of our background, if you in any way desecrate another person's life, you're essentially desecrating your own life, because, as I mentioned earlier, we're all part of one larger organism, and each of us has a certain divine imprint within our souls. And that has to be, I believe, a vigilant and deliberate effort in our schools, in our homes, campaigns. I think corporations should be pressured to be part of this, a type of like a wake-up call and a global call for the respect of the dignity of every individual on this earth. And we don't leave any stone unturned. And no one is immune to that. Everybody's part of the same human race, and we're all responsible for this. And there should be zero tolerance. I'll just be honest with you. I have a friend in New York. He's a lawyer. He's very big into the Black Lives Matter. So I said to him, and he says to me, why don't I see you being part of that? I said, with all respect, if I saw you marching when the Jews were killed in the Pittsburgh synagogue, if I saw you marching against the discrimination against minorities in other countries, then I understand. I say you're selectively choosing who you want to suddenly protest. I mean, I find that political. I don't see that as being honest. He didn't like what I said, but I really stand by that. And two wrongs don't make a right. I repeat that again. I believe all forms of injustice are injustice. But listen, we all know what happened to our people. 6 million, or a third of the Jewish race, were decimated 70 years ago. And I don't know how many countries protested. They were pretty silent. So I start wondering when I hear people protest in selective ways. I start wondering what their agenda is.
I've been blessed to be part of the interfaith movement since the mid-1990s, and in the context of that, we would make these journeys, these pilgrimages to respective houses of worship to participate and to learn and to understand and to embrace and love. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, can you be more specific how that's done?
It was done by, we would have dialogue and contact between different houses of worship, and we'd go into synagogues, into churches, into mosques, and embrace one another, learn from one another, and it was a very, very beautiful experience and time, and it's grown to today.
Look, I personally believe, I have very many good friends in many different religions, different leaders. We get along very well with each other. I think at the same time, there's the diversity is healthy. Now, we don't have to be all of the same creed or the same religion. At the same time, there's a fundamental respect. And I remember when the Ecumenical Council in the early 60s announced that the systemic anti-Semitism of Christianity, they retracted that. That was a big move. I could say, I speak again proudly as a Jew, and I don't want to sound in any way partisan or parochial, because I'm really a universalist, that I believe, and I've always grown up in that type of world. My parents, my community, my teachers, my Rebbe, my mentors were always of the belief that God created all human beings, and each of us have our sacred duty to serve God in our own way, and therefore a type of interaction where that is advanced and people understand and respect each other is always welcome.
And the foundation of the movement is not to change one's religion, not to convert anyone, not to detract, but to experience how everyone worships the divine in their own respective way.
Yes, absolutely. I have many people reading my books and my works that I write articles or videos and so on that are not Jewish, and they actually sometimes write to me and they say, hey, maybe I should become a Jew. And I say, well, you don't need to be Jewish to serve God. You have your relationship, you can reach the greatest heights, and people are quite impressed with that, because usually religions were associated with proselytizing and converting and so on, and that's not the case. I firmly believe that find your way and speak to God your way. Now, we could all learn from each other, and by all means, I have many students and many readers and followers that are of no faith or of other faiths, and I love it. It's great. That's exactly the point, that we all can. There's a verse in the book of the Bible talks about Abraham, that he's the father of all nations. And he had a son Isaac, and he had a son Ishmael. Isaac had a son called Jacob, and a son Esau, and they became the progenitors and the founders of the different worlds we have today, whether it's the Christian Western world, or it's the Muslim Arab world, or the Jewish world. I mean, and so we can all trace it back to one Father, and hopefully they had disagreements, they had their wars, but now perhaps we can all come to a point where instead of having war, we can discover the harmony within our diversity.
And what I discovered in the foundation of all of the faiths, great and small, is the same message: love each other, take care of one another.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what we're taught, because we believe firmly that that the end of days, and that I mean like the Messianic age, which we're close to, is going to be a time where you will have all the nations of the world, the different cultures, different colors, different creeds, different belief systems, but all serving one unified God. And I think think of beauty. Beauty is only possible when you have diversity. And you never can have beautiful. Blue can be a beautiful color as red can be, but beauty is a creation of the harmony within among many different forces.
Absolutely,
so we need each other.
Absolutely. My guest, Rabbi Simon Jacobson. He's the author of Toward a Meaningful Life. Rabbi, please tell our listeners where they can find out more about your books and your website and your work.
Meaningfullife.com. That's easy. One long word, meaningfullife.com. Everything you need to know about me and my work is there. It's based on the title of my book, Toward a Meaningful Life. And you'll find there a wide array of different programs, whether they're text-based like articles or podcasts or video, plenty of videos, and as well as a calendar. Literally, especially since COVID broke 8 months ago, we've been doing nonstop programming, offering people tools and skills of dealing with the fears and the uncertainties of our times, the upheavals. And I think you'll love it. Please join me there. And if you have any questions, I feel very much like the most powerful thing is that interaction, the intersection of souls. And that's what we do. So please check us out at meaningfullife.com.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more Rabbi Jacobson after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
A social distancing tip.
Keeping your distance from others is important in slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are some fun things to do alone. Read a book, take a walk, unpack your suitcase from that trip you took last September, paint a self-portrait, catch up on a TV series, do a puzzle. Remember, we should all stay home to lower the risk for everyone. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Rabbi Simon Jacobson. He's the author of Toward a Meaningful Life. We had ended the last segment touching upon the pandemic. How is the pandemic changing America, for good or for bad?
Well, let's start for good. I believe when we're stripped of our security blankets and our comfort zones, that becomes so much part and parcel of our lives, whether it's travel plans, whether it's going to a restaurant, a baseball game, a club, a theater, our children not being able to go to school in the regular way. So I see, and I've actually witnessed it, people gravitating and turning inward and saying, you know what, where do I really find security? Is it because I have my restaurant plans, or I have my summer plans, or I have to go here or go there? So many ways I think people have come to recognize that the true security that we have comes from a far deeper spiritual place. I'll just give you an example. I was speaking to a group of public school students around 4 months ago, and I asked them, what are the 3 most important things to you right now? And they said, love, family, and values. I said, what about if I had asked you that same question January 2020? And they all said the same thing then. Video games, sports, and sexuality. So there tells you the whole story. On the other hand, obviously, those of us that are addicted to our routines have been, and that has now been disrupted and upended, many are suffering from a lot of difficulties because, when you're used to, if everyone thought it would be over by the time the summer came or something like that, and they realize it's dragging on, I've seen also a lot of psychological challenges. People with anxiety have more anxiety. People whose relationships were not that good in the first place are having more challenges. So I can just tell you on a personal note, I've never been as busy. I probably quadrupled the output of my own work, and literally reached millions of people that I would never have reached without this. So on one hand, we all are very disturbed, obviously. I mean, I've seen deaths in my community, so this isn't a joke. It's not just a wake-up call. There's plenty of pain involved, and I wish it didn't have that element. But on the other hand, I've seen a true awakening, and I think this is a global wake-up call, unprecedented because of its global nature and with technology. The Spanish flu 100 years ago, you didn't have travel then, and you didn't have all this communication we have now. So I really think this can transform the world in a very powerful, positive way, recognizing that materialism is not going to give you security. It's going to be our shared values and our connections. I was one of my mantras was socially distant, but spiritually more connected than ever.
Absolutely. I always say physically. I don't like social distance. I like physical distancing because that's really what it is. We're still socializing, but we're not physically separate. We're physically separated.
That's correct.
What do you think will be the most lasting change out of all of this?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I'll just go on the limb and say the following, because I'm an optimist. I believe that certain things that were already in place will now be amplified and accelerated. For instance, the commodity called knowledge. We've gone through an agricultural revolution. We've gone through an industrial revolution. We've gone through a computer revolution. I believe in the verse in the book of Isaiah that says that the world will be led into a world that is filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. I believe it will be a spiritually conscious higher state that this will ultimately lead us to, with the pains that always come with transition. But that, I think, will be the longest term. I think the commodity of the future will be our spirituality. As our material activities become easier and easier, press of a button, we will spend less time on material survival. And what are we going to do with that extra time? I think entertainment, obviously, you can keep yourself busy. But I think ultimately it's going to be the soul is going to be the wave of the future, the key to our relationships, the key to our common destiny, and the values we pass on to our children. That, I believe, will be the ultimate. Now, it's not. And I don't know if it's going to be an immediate result of the pandemic, but if you look at the trends in history, and I'm a big believer in that, you look at trends, you'll always see pandemics in time led to major shifts in our history, and I think this one will be no different.
And I'm hoping that the shift that we see is a positive and wonderful and loving shift, something akin to what we experienced as a nation after 9/11, but on a more permanent and a more real basis.
Yeah, I agree. And look what happened post-World War II. Yeah. The bloodiest wars in history, World War I, World War II. And post that, we have not had a certain type of an extended period of peace and prosperity. And by no means, I'm not suggesting it's perfect. There are plenty of injustices and plenty of things that we need to fix. But you always have to look at the big picture, like the trend, not so much the immediate ups and downs. There's always going to be ups and downs, including this pandemic. I don't believe that anything changes overnight. But the general trend, Steven Pinker really does great work on that, where he shows the trends of how war, violence, crime is really on the going downward, even though there are blips and there are momentary shifts. But generally speaking, it's like, I don't want to compare it to the stock market, but it's basically going up,
You've worked extensively with people facing addiction, depression, anxiety. How has the pandemic affected people struggling in these ways, and what are some of the keys to recovery?
Interestingly and ironically, been doing a lot of programming with people in the recovery movement, and as one put it really well, he says, we've been here already. We've already hit rock bottom. Our security blankets have been stripped from us. We've lost everything, whether it's alcoholics or other addictions. So I find that some of them actually are almost immunized to this because they are not living in the illusion that everything is going great. They already have come to deeper awareness. So I actually find that many people in the recovery movement can actually be leaders now and show the way. Now, obviously, those that are in the early stages of recovery, this pandemic could also cause more problems because it just throws everybody for a loop. Where if you're depressed and you turn to something that was unhealthy or destructive behavior or substances that are not good for you, there are many people turning to that now more than ever because the pandemic has shaken up our jobs and our securities. So I find both elements, and I mean, at the end of the day, we have to turn to people who have found deeper strength in moments of darkness, because the pandemic is definitely a force, collective and individually, that is causing people to have to look for deeper inner resources. That's the only way we're going to survive it on a deeper level. It's not just about quarantining. That's defensive measures. The offense is going to be, what are we going to tell our children? That we cower in fear and we're just running away from all the challenges? And so we need to dig deeper resources. So I find that the recovery movement actually has some tools, and definitely individuals, that can help lead the way. As far as your other question, like what it is, I just reiterate again, I think it's going inward. We have to recognize, like in any situation. I remember when my father died 15 years ago. And now I was trained in the spiritual tradition. It was very difficult because I loved my father, and it was there's a certain finality, and you can't even describe it or imagine it. You can't prepare for it. The only way I really came out of it much stronger because I dug inward. I dug deeper, and I found strengths that I never thought I had. And that's what it really comes down to. Any type of challenge in life, whether a person's going through a divorce, or they lost a job, or there's a loss in the family, or there's an illness and disease, the only way to really, as they say, the only way out is through, is by digging deeper and discovering that you have more resources than you can imagine in facing these challenges. There's an expression in the Jewish mystical writings that the deepest light is found in the darkness, and that when you dig deep enough, you find a light that you'd never find elsewhere within the darkness.
Absolutely. Why has America grown, in your opinion, so politically divided, and what can ordinary people do to help bridge the gap, heal our nation, and stop the hatred and the anger and the divisiveness?
It pains me greatly. It's very painful to see, because especially when you're so aware, the analogy they give is, imagine a bunch of people, 10 people in a rowboat, and one person starts drilling a hole under his seat. And everyone says, what are you doing? It's affecting us all. He says, I bought this seat and I want to drill a hole underneath it. And it's so obvious that it's not just you. If one person is hurting and we are becoming more polarized and divided, we're actually destroying ourselves, not just others. So it's just painful to see that people can just be doing that and almost mindlessly, brainlessly, with the media participating in this circus and becoming this like blind leading the blind. And I'm not taking any political position. I see it on all sides of the aisle. So to me, it ends up coming to like a conversation we're having. We need conversations like this. We have to rise. Grassroots has to rise up and say, enough is enough. We're not going to tolerate this. I'm definitely not going to participate in the polarization. And then let the people who want to fight, let them be isolated and let them punch it out with each other. But I think what's happened is that so many of us have got caught up in the fray that we're like becoming part of the problem. So I feel that I just will not participate. You and I are having a conversation now. That's the first step. In your home, in your family, at your kitchen table, your breakfast, dinner, lunch, dinner, personal life, do not allow the toxins of divisiveness to enter into your home. Let's start with that. Your children should be protected from that. You have a strong opinion, keep it to yourself. You want to talk about it with your spouse, go outside. You want to bang your head in the wall, fine. But my point is, let's protect our the young ones, the innocent ones, and protect ourselves. It's toxic. To me, divisiveness is toxic. And if you saw it as toxins, you don't want toxins in your life. I think if enough of us will really take a stand, I think it will make a difference. Today with social media and with other technology, here we are, you and I are speaking right now. I would hope that millions of people listen to this and say, you know what, I'm going to be part of this new grassroots movement. And I don't mean another organization, another fundraiser. I mean literally a type of like pay it forward movement, a type of anti-divisiveness, unity. Let's find the things that are in common among us. I mean, it's become really, it's at this point, it's just pure destructive, and we need to recognize it as such. There are people who defend it. People are telling me, no, we have a position and we can't tolerate an opposite position. I said, but since when does a difference of opinion have to create hatred? Why can't we disagree and not be enemies? I have brothers and sisters. You think I agree with everything they say and do? But I love them and they love me. Since when can't love include different opinions? And I think we just need to keep at it and not give in to another type of attitude to this. And I think to me, that's the first step. And then beyond that, I try to do everything I can through my writings and through my teachings to just be a voice of reason and never allow myself to get up. People keep asking me, so are you pro-Trump or pro-Biden? And I always say, I'm pro-God, I'm pro-higher values. If any of them want to advance it, I support it. I'm not pro-anybody. I don't worship human beings, and I don't worship political parties, just like I don't worship the New York Yankees or the Boston Red Sox, you know?
I hope not.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly. I know exactly what you mean.
They have their heroes. They create these cult personalities, and they forget. I mean, I am not even advocating religion here, by the way. I'm just advocating stop worshiping human beings and institutions. They're all flawed. You know, look at them. Each have their strengths and have their weaknesses. Even saying that is already an opening now. Today, everything's black and white. You're either for me or against me. You're either the Hitler or you're the Messiah. I mean, is there something in between? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about having conversations, which we're doing right now. One of the things that seems to be lacking in our world is people genuinely listening to one another. What do you say about that?
I love that. I grew up with listening. I don't know if you know this, but one of the things I did well was when the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, was my mentor. He would speak on the Sabbath and holidays. There were no recordings because in Orthodox Judaism, there's no recordings and no notes are taken. So how did we have his teachings? Because there were individuals, and I was among a very few select group, who listened and absorbed hours and hours verbatim of these talks. And then after the Sabbath and the holidays, we would sit down and reconstruct it. So I'm actually working on a book called The Art of Listening, because listening is an art. It's not just hearing. It's not just your ears are open. Listening means getting your ego on the aside and not processing information, but really listening to another, sensitivity, respect of the dignity of another person, even someone you don't agree with, and just respecting that. So listening to me, exactly, is you hit the nail right on the head. If we could listen well, we are a completely new world. And as I said, listening means respect of another and being able to listen to what they have to say. You know what? You have a disagreement. So afterwards you say, I respectfully disagree. I have a different perspective, a different point of view. But listening lies at the heart. There's a expression in the Hasidic masters and the mystics call it, I'll just introduce you and the audience to a word called bitul. It's a Hebrew word, which means a type of a combination of humility, modesty, but above all, suspending yourself in the face of something greater than yourself. And that is really the secret to love, the secret to relationships, the secret to peace, world peace, the secret to the antidote to divisiveness.
And as many great philosophers said, we're given 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice, speak once.
Right. Maybe today we should have 3 ears and 1 mouth.
I agree with you 100%. My guest is Rabbi Simon Jacobson. We'll be back with more of Rabbi Jacobson after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
The United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. At the Equal Justice Initiative, we believe mass incarceration has to end. There is this presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people. We have to confront our history of racial injustice and commit to a new era of truth. There's something better waiting for us, something that feels more like freedom. Truth can inspire change. Please learn more at EJI.org.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Rabbi Simon Jacobson. We're talking about his program and his book, Toward a Meaningful Life. Based on your studies of the Torah and faith wisdom, you outlined some keys to building healthy, lasting marriages. How can people keep the spark of intimacy alive, resolve conflicts, and find and maintain fulfilling relationships?
Victor, you have a knack for asking the big questions, expecting like a magic pill. I'll do my best. Relationships obviously lie at the heart of who we are. Relationships. Number one is the way we bring children in this world. So when our relationships are healthy, to me, that's the litmus test of a healthy society. Not the standard of living, not how much money you make, not how many buildings, how many homes you own, etc. It's the quality of your relationship with your spouse, and by extension with your children, with your family, with your friends, with your community. So I go back to a term I used earlier. To me, the success of a relationship is realizing life is not all about you. It's not me, 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 me. When you learn to become a giver more than a taker, you will have the best possible relationship. The problem in our society, one of the problems, is people have turned into seeing relationships as yet another commodity, another almost business, a negotiation. You know, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. And I once asked a couple I was counseling, and I said to the guy, I said, do you ever hear of unconditional love? Unconditional love? He says, yeah, of course. If my wife did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I would have unconditional love. Great, you know. So the idea that, like, which really children teach us this. Little newborn children can't give much. they receive, but by us giving them, we become great people. And I think that that we become so spoiled by the commodity-driven society that you press a button, you get Amazon Prime at your door. Everything is like purchasable. But when you ask people what you can purchase, can you purchase love? Can you purchase truth, spirituality, God, values? None of them cost money, and none of them are purchased. You can't buy them. And I would also add the respect for realizing that the real things in life are not something you can just press a button and get. You have to respect the process, and they emerge. You can't pull a flower out of the ground. You got to water it, and then it grows. That's how love works. And I think our society, especially being also over inundated and media overload, television shows, we learn our values, we learn love from fiction, that is fantasy. And what we need to do is go back to the basics. I mean, I may sound like a cliche, but that's really what it comes down to. That a healthy relationship is right now you and your spouse sitting down eye to eye, and not through texting and not through other things, and just have a conversation about what you care about. What are you ready to fight for? What kind of mark you want to leave in this universe? Just introduce topics that are not about impermanent things. Talk about the impermanence, like what kind of children you want to bring in this world, what people walk into your home once COVID is over, what kind of vibe do you want to give off. And I think now is a great time to do so because we don't have the distractions. You can't just say, okay, let's go to a show. No, maybe it's time to just have these conversations. I would advise couples to go into their bedroom at night, not to leave the TV on, not to fall asleep with a newspaper on their nose. Why don't they read some poetry together or some spiritual book, something soothing, music, intimate in the sense of personal. Now, I know a lot of people are afraid of it. They haven't done it so long. They're afraid. They don't know what they're going to find, and they're going to be vulnerable. I think that love ultimately is the celebration of vulnerability. And that's what cultivates trust. I mean, this is just a few stuff, Victor. We can go on and on about something of this nature because this is like, I always tell people, I mean, if anyone had mastered it, it wouldn't become a best-selling book every time a new book comes out. Because they would have figured out how to do it.
This is true. And as my wife and I share, we also practice being partners to others in goodness and kindness.
Beautiful. Correct.
And being of service to others in any way we possibly can.
Yeah.
And in that, it bonds us even stronger together because we know that we're doing the work that our love is generating.
Yeah. Yes.
You say there's a 4,000-year-old 7-step program to understand our souls and unlock our potential. How does this work?
Okay. So in ancient Jewish mysticism, there's the concept that just as the body has parts, we have arms and legs and eyes and ears and heart and brain and the liver, etc., and kidneys and lungs. The human soul also has parts. It's just not physical. And part of that is we'll call it the spectrum of the 7 emotions. That the 7 general emotions that drive all life, and of course they all are interconnected, are here they are. Number 1 is love. I'll say the Hebrew, chesed. Number 2 is discipline, which in a sense is channeling the love, the restraint, the discretion. That's called gevura. Number 3 is compassion, tiferet. Number 4 is determination, ambition, drive, netzach. Number 5 is hod, which means yielding, humility. Number 6 is bonding, and yesod, bonding and connecting with something or someone. And finally, number 7 is dignity, malchut, a sense of inner dignity, that you matter, that you're valuable. Now, obviously, that's the brief of it. But when you look at them, and you look at them as individuals, and you say, okay, some of us are very givers. We're givers, but we sometimes don't know when to stop giving. We can spoil people in our giving. We can suffocate them with love. So you need the brakes, so to speak, to the gas, like make sure the giving is proper. It's tailored to the recipient, like rain. Rain is a beautiful thing, but it has to come down as raindrops. If it comes down as buckets, it'll destroy the fields. The same thing with each one of these emotions. It's a way of evaluating yourself. I actually did a book called The Spiritual Guide to Counting the Omer, which can be found at meaningfullife.com, where I dissect these 7 and also 7 times 7, like the discipline within love, the love within discipline, the empathy or compassion within love. And really what you end up getting is a type of X-ray of your emotional spectrum, your psyche. And by doing so, like we all know, you can only grow when it's in the details. Like, are you missing vitamin C, or do you need some extra iron? Like it is in the mineral or vitamin world, the same thing with the emotions. Each one of us look at what our strengths are and where we need to supplement it with activities. Some people are great disciplinarians, but they're lacking the giving side, or it's weaker. That's the gist of it. I hope I was clear.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm not a scholar the way you are, but I remember from studying the Torah that the great sin of Sodom and Gomorrah was not what most people think. It was about inhospitality and turning away those who ask for help, who ask for refuge. Is my interpretation correct? And if so, how does this reflect the way immigrants have been treated recently?
Okay, very good. Yes, that is correct. I mean, they had, unfortunately, as you know, if you're sinning in one area, you're probably sinning in other areas too. But the way you put it is well said. I would just elaborate on it a bit and then answer your question about immigration. They, one of their worst qualities was, what is for me is for me, what is for you is for you. They were anti, what I called earlier, cross-pollination. They were anti-interacting, recognizing we complement each other. Like a society, look at nature. If there was no pollination by the bees and the flowers, or if there was no photosynthesis, and our whole ecology, our whole environment is about a give and take, a breathing in and out, and we all interact with each other and we grow through the process. So they were anti that. Basically, I'm self-contained, I don't need you, and I will give you nothing. So in some ways, that can be even more destructive than going to war, because you're basically suffocating the human organism that so much thrives and flourishes on interaction. It would be like locking you in a basement and saying, figure it out on your own, and you'll never interact with anyone. So how that plays itself out today is, yes, when we realize that we think we can just be self-contained, whether as an individual or as a community or a country. Immigration is what made this country what it is. At the same time, we all understand that it has to be done in a balanced way. But the fact of the matter is, especially you talk about the Jewish people, one of the reasons it says be good to the stranger, because you were once a stranger. So I think that understanding that we are always welcoming the stranger is a vital component, not just because we're being kind to them, because at the end of the day, they have something to give us just as much we have to give them. Now, I'm not getting into the politics of it, what immigration laws should be implemented, and questions of political asylum or other forms of asylum. That's already the details. But the general principle is yes. But we all know this country has been struggling with this. Look, during World War II, they wouldn't have let Jews into this country. So that could have saved them. But I do think it has to be, as I said earlier, I'm not an extremist. I don't think it's all or nothing. I think you have to find balance. And that's the key to everything. I don't think isolationism is the key. Neither just like those that argue open borders, just let everyone be everywhere, get rid of all the boundaries and countries. That can be a problem too. But you have to know how to do it properly. That's the key.
What message would you share with us about what you see for 2021?
Well, I see 2021 being a continuation a bit of this whole pandemic-driven society. There's a cloud hanging over us. It's called uncertainty. Even if there's a vaccination and even if we do conquer COVID, there's going to be the psychological fallout. The disruption of our schools, I think disruption of many industries that may not come back that easily or at all. And so I see 2021 as being like if anything, is like the end of a battle. And it may even last through 2021 for all we know. If you ask me 2022, I think the rebuilding of many of our industries and our, most importantly, is the certainty and uncertainty I find to be the key. If I were to make a headline, it would be the disruption of our reliable infrastructures. And I think those infrastructures are going to have to go through a reality check. So the paradigm is, we're right now in the middle of a paradigm shift, and it's always painful. It's like almost like, I don't want to call it an earthquake, but the cracks are visible, and it's going to take time to regain our balance. I think those that are ahead of the game are the ones that have strong spiritual resources, because they're not as shaken up. They're able to dig deeper. So I see 2021 as, I don't think it's just all going to be solved. I think there's going to be more of the same till maybe the end of the year, when things start quieting down, when COVID begins to have essentially infected everybody, and everybody become immune.
My guest is Rabbi Simon Jacobson. His book, Toward a Meaningful Life. Rabbi, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you and your wonderful and wise work.
Absolutely, Victor. My website is meaningfullife.com. Meaningfullife.com, one long word. There you can find an array of programs as well as tools. I actually recently developed a course, an online course called Midlife Miracle, Discover Your Personal Mission, which I think is vital to anything in life to succeed. But there's a lot of other stuff there, and we're on all the platforms, on social media, on YouTube, on Facebook. But the hub of it all is at meaningfullife.com. We also have subscriptions. You can subscribe to something we call the Soul Workout. You like get every second day you'll get something in your inbox, or any form you like, that helps you exercise your soul, like we call it spiritual self-care. And it would be great to hear from you all. Love to hear your comments. meaningfullife.com.
Rabbi, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom and your message.
It was a great pleasure to be with you. I love talking to you. It was an excellent synergy. Let's call it that.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.